Hello, my name is Alex Randall, 17 years old. I'm a senior in high school. I attend Northwood School, which is a boarding school in Lake Placid, New York. And what I want to talk about today is one of the canoes that I've built. It's a 17-foot long canoe made out of Western red cedar strips, fiberglass inside and outside. I've been using boats my whole life. I've been in the outdoors my whole life. My first time camping was when I was less than a month old. I've been rowing since a young boy. I've been canoeing since I was a young boy, hiking, learned to climb and go mountaineering, stuff like that. And I also love woodworking, so I figured building boats would be a good way to combine the two. And the first boat that I built was a 15-foot long canoe made out of pine strips. It's not fully done yet, just time constraints and living at school and having a boat at home doesn't really work that well. But at school, at Northwood, there's a program called the Peak Pathways program. Basically allows you to take a year to basically design a class about whatever you want to learn, so I did mine about boats. And I decided to build a second boat, also a cedar strip canoe, or also a strip canoe, this one made out of cedar strips. And I've used this boat to learn stuff, to experiment, to fail. There's been a lot of failing in this boat. And yeah, so in this video, I'd like to go over what's different about the boat, what I've learned, potentially what's going to happen to the boat, and how the boat was built. So, like I said, my first boat was a 15-foot long canoe. The canoe is a round bottom canoe, which means that the canoe hull forms this kind of shape. It's meant for tracking or going really straight and really fast. It's a racing canoe. It's not very family friendly. It's very tippy. You know, it's for more experienced canoe builders. And I decided to make that one because it was cheaper and smaller. And I haven't tested it on the water yet because I only started building it less than a year ago, before I had to come back to school for the year. So making it, I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but I didn't really experiment with anything. I really wanted to figure out what I was doing before I could figure out how to fail, if that makes any sense. And so, like I said, 15-foot long, round bottom canoe. It's got about a 40-inch beam, which is the width at the widest part of the boat. And like I said, it's meant to go fast. It's made out of pine because I figured if I'm going to be learning how to make a canoe, I might as well use not the nicest wood because it's going to be ugly. And it sure as heck is. But it's got character, which, you know. The other boat, which I'm going to throw some photos up on screen of hopefully too, that boat is 17 feet long, made out of Western red cedar, the premium wood for strip canoe construction. That boat is a flat bottom boat, which means that the bottom is flat, so it sort of makes a shape like this, and it comes in at the top just a little bit. And what that does is it allows for extra stability and maneuverability. So it's really easy to turn. Before, sort of like plastic and kayaks were really common. Flat bottom canoes were your whitewater boats. Those were the boats that, you know, pioneers and explorers and trappers and traders would take into the wilderness because they're going to be traveling up rivers and down rivers and across lakes. They're versatile. And when you put a lot of weight into them, they handle fine. And so this boat is a little bit wider as well. It's about 45 inches wide at the beam. I'm not sure what the draft is on the first boat or the second boat. And then with this boat, I decided to try new things. I tried new things at the ends, which I'll go over. I learned how to scarf boards together for this one because I couldn't buy 17 or 18 foot long lumber. And yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the specifics of the boat. So this is my second canoe, and by extension, one of the workshops I've been in. This canoe has been moved 3 times already, and it's going to get moved a 4th time. I'm currently in the process of sanding the outer layer of epoxy, so it's ready for varnish. Varnishing will come at the very end, but once that's done, flip it over, sand the inside, fiberglass the inside, sand that fiberglass and epoxy, and then add gunnels, seats, decks, and thwarts, and then we're done. It's been a long process. It's been a very dirty process. Very, very dirty process. Somewhat toxic. But yeah, so this is the canoe, 17 feet long. You can see it's made out of these cedar strips, like I said. I got a couple of them, a couple short offcuts right here. Now these cedar strips were originally 21 feet long, and then before that they were boards that were 13 feet long and 17 feet long, and then if you really want to go back further, they were a tree somewhere on the west coast of Canada. So each of these strips had a bead and a cove routed into it, which is going to make sense in a second. A bead is that rounded side right there, and then the cove is that concave side right there. So what that allows us to do is fit these 2 strips together, and by extension all of the strips together, and it allows us to curve them around the boat without there being any extreme gaps, which is pretty cool. The only problem is that it takes like 8 hours to do all the mill work, which is kind of tedious and boring. Did it all at my grandfather's shop because he has all the tools, all the cool stuff. And then brought them all to school, and I should have some pictures of the forms, which are what are underneath all the strips. And I don't know if you can see it on the video, but on the canoe there you can see these lines. These are from staples, and so that's where each of the forms are. The strips got stapled into the forms to hold them in. On my first boat, I didn't do that. I just sort of held them in, and I ran into a lot of problems with that. You couldn't put multiple strips on at once with the system I was using, so you had to put a strip on and then wait an hour and a half for the glue to dry, and then put another one on. With this one, I could just keep putting on strips and keep stapling them down. One day, in 2 hours, I got 17 strips on the canoe. It's pretty quick. And the other boat took me 3 months, 4 months to get to this stage. This boat took me also 4 months, which isn't that much quicker. Anyways, it really felt quicker, and I could only work on this for 45 or, an hour or 2 a day. And on the boat at home, I could work in the mornings before work in the summer, and then in the afternoons after work in the summer, and this felt a lot quicker. And so then what I did is I decided that I was going to route a strip down the middle. So I routed out a gap, a trench, and then I laid a strip down in there so as to cover up all the ugly imperfections. Because what I did is I stripped one side fully, and then I stripped the other side fully. They got glued together, did that down the middle, worked out pretty well. So, down here at the ends, I also decided to do something different. You can see I have these nice pieces of lighter colored wood that are protecting the ends. This is all maple. I cut it down and milled it myself, which was a process because we don't have a sawmill. And then, you can't see it, but there's one on the inside too. And so the one on the inside is what all the strips got glued to. I took the inner one of these and I used my belt sander to sort of go from something like this to something like that, so the strips would fit flush. They get glued to that, and then I basically chiseled out some stuff up here, some stuff down here to make these fit, and then just sort of sanded it, and then they all got covered in the fiberglass and epoxy. One of the troubles I ran into was that these were a little bit too wide in some spots, and so there are some weird gaps, like air bubbles in the epoxy. But I'm going to fix that. I'm going to cut them open and then cover them with a whole new strip of fiberglass, just to be more, just so that they can be more protected. This is also going to do a lot of, like, if you hit a rock or beach the canoe, that's going to take a lot of the force, so the strips don't split, because they split really easily. You know, it's softwood and it's with the grain, so it's going to... So after all of that was done, I moved on to fiberglassing. A couple pieces of fiberglass here. This stuff, I fully believe it's like a miracle material. Just because, I mean, this stuff is amazing. This stuff is beautiful. These are fibers of glass woven together. And so it's really strong in a, you know, it adds a lot of tensile strength to the canoe when it's saturated and then cured in epoxy. And what's really cool is that when you try and pull it like this, you can't move it. That's what gives the canoe a lot of its strength. When you take it by the corners, you can stretch that a lot. And so now you can see the proportions of it are completely different. And then you just sort of, you can pull it right back to normal. This stuff is amazing. So it got laid down very flat on the canoe. I spent 45 minutes just, you know, massaging it into place, stretching it so that there's no bubbles. There still were, and I'm going to fix those. I'm going to patch them with more. But I got it laying nice and flat, and then I added the epoxy. Now, something new that I tried this time was a squeegee. Before, I had just sort of brushed it on and tried to scrape it with paint scrapers. Doesn't work. My grandpa lent me one of these. Amazing. I was able to get the nicest, like, coat of epoxy I have put on between this boat and the other boat. I spread the epoxy out, I got it. You could still see the fiberglass weave and everything. It was amazing. And then I added 2 more layers of epoxy on. Between the layers of epoxy, I let it fully cure. Between the layers of epoxy, I sanded a little bit. And then now I'm sanding it completely smooth. So that's where I am now. After that, we'll move on to gunnels, or gunwales. And then after that, it'll be seats and yokes or thwarts, sort of what you carry the boat on, and then decks, which go on the very end. That stuff is probably either going to be made out of maple, ash, or cherry. I'm leaning towards something light colored just to match the curved bits at the end. This here isn't long enough, but this is some ash that I cut with my grandfather. And these are going to end up being a pair of snowshoes. But this is similar wood to what I hope to use for gunnels. And so what I'll probably end up doing is finding 2 10-foot long sections of tree. Or I'll probably end up buying it because I would need to let the wood dry, and that takes a while. So then after that, the whole boat will be varnished, be nice and pretty. There'll be like 5 layers of varnish on this, and then it'll be good to go. If all things go well, this boat is hopefully going to be raffled off at the end of the year in an event, and then all of the proceeds are going to go to the Lake Placid Outing Club. It's a program run through the Lake Placid Public School. It allows students to get out, do outdoor stuff, you know, go canoeing, hiking, climbing, camping, all that stuff, basically for free. 80% of their trips are free, and the other ones have a small fee attached to them just to pay for transportation or food or gear. And so I've been in the outdoors my whole life. I've been doing a lot of stuff in the outdoors my whole life, and so I figure it's a little bit more fun if there are more people out there who enjoy it. So that's hopefully what this boat is going to go to, as long as there's no problems with it, which there may be, but I'm going to try and fix those. Yeah.